Every young person knows that when they come to a Foundry Center, they see those colors, they see the animals on the walls, or they see the friendly faces at the doors, that they're gonna come in and they're gonna get the things that they need for the issues that they're facing in their life.
It just told me right away with the visual that this place was going to be different.
When I think of like the consistency of Foundry centers across BC, I think of like a beaming light. You kind of see like that certain shade of blue and you know that this is a place that's meant for you, like that's meant to support you and help you navigate things in any way that you can.
I think that the consistency in our branding is incredibly important for young people to feel safe and welcome. If a young person moves, for example, in British Columbia, they know that when they're in their new community, if they recognize a Foundry Center, that they know exactly what their experience will be like when they walk through the front door, and that will relieve a lot of anxiety for them.
When a young person comments on, the hope it brings them when they walk through the door, that can't be overlooked. That can't be overlooked. It's not just a coat of paint. It's not just a green wall. It's not just a frog on a wall. It really, in many ways, I think, communicates to them that there is a service out there for them, and they're not expected to change or to shift or to be different. This is a service designed for them.
Foundry centers are designed with and for young people, so youth and caregivers are involved every step of the way, from the selection of the site to the design of the space to the selection of furniture. And so we know when youth and families are engaged throughout that the end result will be a space where they do feel welcome. The Foundry brand was first created back, it was late 2015, early 2016, the initial branding process launched. We worked with an agency to engage with youth and families from across BC in the first 6 communities that we were working with initially, to speak to their youth and families and their service providers about what was the look and feel for Foundry, what was important to be there.
I remember in the early focus groups, way back at the beginning, we were talking a little bit about like what the space could look like. And I think for a lot of young people that we spoke with, they almost couldn't even imagine this at first, because we are kind of used to, unfortunately, very sterile, white, very traditional, not the most inviting places to access services. And so we put some examples of different kind of spaces, like fun coffee shops or really unique tech startup type feels in front of them, and just seeing the ideas then come forth of what, like, really, this is what it could be. Like, it doesn't have to be what they've always had, and it can be so much more, and bringing their ideas and their vision into the actual physical design has been amazing. And then so from there, then we dug into some of the other aspects of our visual identity, so the colors and also the naming. And the naming process is always the most challenging.
Foundry was actually soundly rejected at that time by the adults in the room, not really understanding what young people saw in that word. Foundry for them represented a word that was hopeful, but it wasn't, as some described, it wasn't rainbows and unicorns. It was something that really grasped their imagination and highlighted that you could find what you were looking for.
The world changes, the context changes, and youth and families change. In engaging with youth and families today about what's important to them in a service, an integrated youth service, it looks very different in some ways.
We're just going through a brand refresh, because what we know today is different than what we knew 6 years ago. The young people are changing.
So I've been on the brand refinement project since the beginning of COVID, and through it my role has really been sitting in on meetings and kind of ensuring that like the youth perspective on different branding things is heard, and kind of bringing up issues that I see within like branding videos and kind of the language that we might be using. I think like as a youth, kind of facilitating those types of groups with other youth is really important, because I feel like they kind of feel more welcome to give constructive criticism to things, as well as to give like their honest opinions.
As part of the refinement process, our colors evolved, and we have different shades and different colors based on the feedback from youth and families. And we also have a new selection of animals and natural features of trees and plants that represent the different regions in the province, and so that communities can really work with them and use them in ways that they want.
My involvement through the Foundry Provincial Family Ambassadors was to review and give our input into colors, certain graphics, softening things up. There was a lot of involvement, and it was a really great project to be a part of.
I'd say that the key messages that really need to be consistent as we go through this brand refinement project is that Foundry is a space for anyone and everyone, and that really couldn't get lost throughout this process. So anyone that walks into a Foundry Center, no matter their age or their culture, demographic, anything like that, they know that they're welcome and they can get whatever support they need. And we really didn't want to lose that throughout this brand refinement process. One thing that we heard, especially when it comes to age and accessing some age gaps that were missing, like older men, was that the brand needed to mature a little bit throughout this refinement process. We also know that because of history, Indigenous young people have struggles and things that come up for them when they're trying to access services, because they may have been harmed in the past. So we have been very intentional throughout this brand refinement process to make sure that our key messaging is that you are safe here, this is a space for everyone, and to ensure that we did have conversations with Indigenous artists who help us with our graphics to make sure that they are culturally safe for everyone and inviting.
We also had an Indigenous talking circle where we spoke to young people from Métis Nation BC and First Nations Health Authority who were volunteering with those organizations. And so we used all the feedback that we got from the Indigenous talking circle, as well as the feedback from our youth advisory councils, to really shape that and to shape the branding into what it is today.
Communities were asking for something different. Communities were asking for a brand that, also they felt like they could see themselves in. Foundry has really stepped up to the plate, and by including, a variety of folks at the focus group level, at the working group level, at, the content creation level, has meant that Indigenous young people, probably will have better experiences in seeing themselves identified in a Foundry Center.
We've just learned so much from youth and families who've accessed the services, new partners in our network. It just really, I think, added a lot of richness to the brand.
It evolved into, I would say, a much stronger and focused and more inclusive brand. And our next steps are to take this and our values and really continue to dig into how do we ensure that young people and caregivers get the experience that they need and that they want when they walk into a Foundry Center or access their services.
We need to get to a place where young people understand that Foundry is there 365 days a year, and that our services are available and easily accessed. Because the Foundry brand has, I think, had the weight that it's had so far, because of its broad acceptance, I think we can get there. Unlike other organizations where there hasn't been a focus on the brand, I think we are in an ideal situation to get to a place where the brand is understood by everyone to be a safe place for them to go to.